This is Dr. Mayura, and I want to answer a question that I'm getting a lot about COVID-19, which is the double mutant strain that we're seeing in India, which is causing such an exponential surge in cases. So this is called B1617, this the name of this strain. Now, what is a mutation? So that's also a question you keep getting. What is a mutation? Is it bad? Is it good? So mutations are a normal part of evolutionary biology, and viruses mutate all the time. And this is a result of natural selection. So the mutant can be either beneficial to the virus or not. So it can be advantageous or it could be disadvantageous. Sometimes when they mutate, they become more pathogenic, and sometimes they become less. And when the viruses become more pathogenic, they replicate in the population. And when they are less pathogenic, they die out, and you don't see those strains again. So a mutation is nothing but an error in the genomic sequencing of the virus when it's replicating in the host. So that is what a mutation is. And as I said before, a mutation can be disadvantageous or advantageous. In this case, in B1617, it's been advantageous for the virus to mutate. So this is called a double mutant. Now coming to the double mutant strand in India. This is called a double mutant strand. It's actually a misnomer because there are actually in B1617, there are 13 mutations, but two important ones. And these two important ones are in the spike protein. Now, in the spike protein, there are actually 4 mutations in this new strain of virus, but these 2 mutations are very similar to other strains that we've seen. So the 2 mutations are E484Q and L452R. So E484Q is very similar to E484K, which is the mutation that was found in the South African and UK variants, which were infected. And L452R was the mutation that was found in the COVID in California. So these 2 mutations have come together, and they're making the virus more infective, more transmissible, and also evading immune response. Therefore, they are increasing the ability to get reinfected and also decreasing the efficacy of the vaccine, because they're not responding, they're escaping the antibodies that our own immune system is producing. So now this doesn't mean that you don't take the vaccine. The vaccine still does help, and I say please take the vaccine, because it still does prevent severe illness and severe hospitalization and death. So please take the vaccine. All this is that the virus is escaping immune response and is decreasing the vaccine efficacy. So you could still be infected after getting the vaccine. So B617 was seen first on 5th October in 2020. That was the first time it was sequenced. And then it's been sequenced in November and December. But only early in Feb and March this year did we see 60% of the strains, sequenced strains in samples in Maharashtra being tested with this double mutant strain in the RT-PCR. And now we have 10 out of our 28 states or more which have this strain, and it's about 50% of all the samples that we're getting are this B617 strain. There's also apparently a triple mutant strain, which is called B618, which is now newly being seen in West Bengal, which there's not much information about that as yet. So this strain is seen in 10 states. It's also spread to some places in UK, in Australia, in US and New Zealand. So there are travel bans in some of these states as of now as well. So now the gold standard for testing for COVID, as you know, is RT-PCR. I'm sure everybody's heard of it. Now RT-PCR can give you a false negative report, because RT-PCR is only 70% sensitive, and so it can give you 30% false negative reports. Now this doesn't mean that you don't have COVID if you still have symptoms. So please test yourself again. And there are other markers to test, like your CT scan, and you have your acute inflammatory reactants like your CRP and your D-dimer and your LDH and ferritin. These also can help your doctor in diagnosing if you come RT-PCR negative or positive if you have COVID, and how severe your COVID is. Of course, your CT scan and X-rays also help here. There's also something called cycle threshold. That is the number of cycles required to amplify the viral RNA. So if your cycle threshold is 35 or more, then your RT-PCR negative. That means you don't have COVID. But if it's just below that, then that means you do have COVID, but it shows the infectivity of the viral load. Now the so the lower the CT score, the more infective you are, and the higher up, closer to 35, the less infective you are. So that's what it shows. Now, the RT-PCR can be false, and it gives you a false report in some cases because there are multiple reasons. Now, the first thing is that the kits might be old. The kits might be the ones from 2020 not being able to detect this new strain. Secondly, the system is overloaded now, so there is error in collection of samples and transport of samples. There was an incident where in a hospital, I think the security guard was taking the swabs. So erroneous collection of swabs can also show that, and also the new strain is apparently going straight to the lungs, so that can also not be detected on a nasopharyngeal swab. So that's another reason why the RT-PCR is not always accurate. So be aware of this. And this new strain is when you test it early, before symptoms, you might have more viral load in the nasopharynx. But if you're testing a little later, the virus leaves the nasopharynx and goes towards the lungs and other parts of the body. So you might not get it through a nasopharyngeal swab. So these are some of the reasons that RT-PCR, if you're negative, you still might have COVID and you still need to do some further tests and be in touch with your doctor and isolate at home if you feel that you have COVID and take the vaccination. Thank you so much.